Well, good morning, everyone. I've got a little bit of a later start than usual, but it's still very much morning, and the skies are blue, no clouds, no wind, but that is going to change. And I don't know that I'm going to be shooting any photos today. I think today is going to be a day just to relax a little bit and to wander around, because around 11 o'clock this morning, clouds are supposed to start showing up, and then with them will come the wind. And by this evening, there'll be a chance of rain, even though it would just make no sense that there's a storm on the way right now. But it is. And the weather forecast calls for, I think, about 26-mile-an-hour winds with gusts up to 40 miles an hour, and perhaps about a half inch of rain. And most of that will happen overnight, and the temperatures will drop, and there's actually a chance of a little bit of snow in the morning. So this place could very well look very different tomorrow. But I think this will be a wonderful opportunity for me to just relax a little bit, spend some time wandering, and tomorrow morning we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting. When there are conditions like that, everything changes so much. There could be some good leaf litter on the ground, and snow always adds a variable as well. But until then, I'm going to keep wandering here and just enjoy some quiet time in the park. So this is now the 7th day of my trip, and I have absolutely no clue how any of my photos turned out. You guys know, but I don't know. And that is one of the really cool things about shooting film, because it keeps you hungry for that next image, that next opportunity. Because if I were to have known that, let's say, the first photo I took on this trip was just portfolio grade, really, really fantastic image, maybe I'd be working a little bit less hard right now to try to find more subjects. So it might seem a little intimidating perhaps for people coming from a digital perspective to not have that instant feedback. But it really is a blessing in disguise when shooting film, because it really makes you work for that image and just stay on the hunt for whatever is next around the corner. And I play this little game with myself where all the images I've shot so far, not only do I try to forget them, but I try to convince myself that they did not turn out. Maybe I messed up the exposure, messed up the focus, maybe the light wasn't great, subject wasn't great. So I just sort of trash talk those images in my mind. But meanwhile, I'm just gathering more and more work. So it's one of the fun things about shooting film. With wind come clouds, and with clouds come wind. Just as forecasted, some clouds started to appear right around 11 o'clock. But before they showed up, there was a little bit of wind. You could tell things were stirring. And then it really started kicking up. And now, the sky is mostly overcast. And it just changes things so much. It's pretty awesome to scout out a couple of subjects this morning. Those require morning light on a relatively calm day, which is not going to be tomorrow. Could be the day after. So maybe Monday morning, see about potentially photographing some of those if the conditions are right. But now, I'm just out and about scouting, and I love it when the wind starts kicking up. Everything comes alive. The leaves are raining from the trees, and it's not great for photography with the relatively flat light and with the wind, but it really is a fantastic experience for just hiking around and enjoying the place. So we'll see what the afternoon brings. Well, it's now going on 3 o'clock, and there's some sun out right now. There was a band of clouds that looked a little bit threatening that passed through a little bit earlier. But now it's just really windy, a bit sunny. And I decided to go back to my truck a little bit earlier and have some lunch and also load some film. And well, that went well. But thankfully my truck was parked facing into the wind, and so it really wasn't, I didn't get blasted too much, let's just put it that way. And I think the film will be just fine. But now I'm out for a wander, and I'm just taking note on all the various things that I find, perhaps for later in this visit or future visits. And it's actually quite nice when there's very little pressure to take any photos, because I just simply can't shoot in this kind of wind and the light isn't always the best. So it just gives me an opportunity to wander around, follow my curiosity, and come up with plans for at some point later down the line. But man, oh man, this is beautiful. Well, good morning, everyone. So the rain started last night right around sunset, and it was pretty much for most of the night. There were some moments when it was a little bit heavier, but it was for the most part just a nice steady rain. And I came back to where I was yesterday, and there was definitely some water that was flowing through here. It was never a very high water level, maybe, I don't know, 4 inches of water at most. But it'll be interesting to see how this area has transformed. And all the fallen wood here is very dark. All the trees are very dark. Everything's very saturated. And the skies right now are mostly cloudy, but there are some bits of blue sky there. And you can tell that it's gonna be blue skies here pretty soon. The snow level hit just the very, very tops of the peaks that are around me, so it never dropped down to the level where I am right now. But I'm actually very fine with that because honestly, snow is great, but it can make things a little bit stressful trying to find some way to make use of that snow. So I'm good with rain. But this small canyon has an area where there was a bunch of fallen leaves yesterday, and I don't think there's enough water to sweep them away. So I think that might make for a potential photo. But I'm gonna go check it out and see how it looks. Well, I made my way to the area where I found some really nice fallen leaves set against rocks yesterday afternoon. And I was curious if the water levels overnight were high enough to wash away those leaves. And sure enough it was, but it's just fine because it means that on future visits I now know of a wonderful area that catches some really nice leaves against the rocks. And on my hike back there, there was plenty of quicksand to negotiate. So after a while you learn to recognize the rather suspicious areas where you'll very quickly sink up to your knees if you're if you're not mindful of where you're stepping. But everything is very saturated right now, and what I'm thinking is probably gonna wander around a little bit, and then I'll head back to my truck, and when things dry out a little bit more, see if I can find some interesting subjects more toward the afternoon when there should be plentiful reflected light. But it's so nice to have all the washes just paved clean right now, and we'll see what the afternoon brings. So it is now just after 3 p.m. and I'm going for a little wander in the washes. The sun is out, but that's only a recent development. It's actually been very cloudy, windy, and very cold for most of the morning into the early afternoon. But the washes here have been just completely revamped, and I'm just being very careful to walk on the rocks and to not walk in the water and to not walk in the quicksand, because there's a fair amount of that. But it'll be interesting because I don't think there's going to be any photos I'm going to shoot today. I'm more so just getting a feel for the place. But in the coming days, as this begins to dry out, and also as the leaves begin to fall from the trees, because I thought a lot of the leaves would have been stripped from the trees with all the wind we had. But some of them were very reluctant to give up those leaves. And so I think they'll start falling off in the days to come, and especially on some of this really nice fresh mud. So I think there'll be some wonderful opportunities that await. I just have to be patient. In the meantime, I'm just going to wander around and enjoy the experience. Well, it is early evening now, and I am back at camp. I mostly just wandered the washes to get a feeling for how they had been changed with the water that flowed through there. And there wasn't very much leaf litter on the ground. Some of the leaves that fell from the storm yesterday were swept downstream. But many of the maples are still in the process of turning color, so I think in the days to come, some of those leaves are going to fall off, and since the washes are so very clean right now, I think it's going to present some very interesting opportunities. I did expose one single sheet of film as I was wandering. I didn't film any video of it because I don't think it's going to be a great photo. But it's one of those situations where I'm just curious how it looks on film. It's 2 yucca plants that are growing side by side, and they're sort of interlocked between each other. So I just put a simple composition on it, stop down, and expose a sheet of film. So we'll see how that turns out. But the main thing is going to be tomorrow morning. So tomorrow morning is going to be quite cold. As of right now, it's about 47 degrees. Actually, it was a little bit cooler than that. I think it's about 45 degrees. And so overnight, it's definitely going to drop below freezing. And some of the pools of water in the washes will likely freeze overnight. And so we'll see how that goes. But I do have 2 potential photos planned for the morning. It was a subject I found yesterday. One of them is this crack in the sandstone with this cactus growing right there. And the other is just this arrangement of rocks on a slope. And all I need for that is sunny skies, which looks like is in the forecast for tomorrow. But it's going to be cold, and so we'll see how that goes. But definitely a very eventful day of just wandering around and checking things out and setting the stage for the days to come. But now, time for dinner, and thankfully, I don't have to load any film because my fingers are pretty cold. But we'll see what happens in the morning. If you enjoy this ad-free and clickbait-free content and want to help me live my dream, a voluntary contribution of just $24 a year helps keep my gas tank full and my film freezer stocked. For more information on how to support me and my work, please visit the donation section of my website at benhorne.com/donate. I also have prints and my portfolio box set available on my website. You can find a direct link down below in the show notes. Thanks in advance for your support.